College campuses are supposed to be places of safety, learning, and new beginnings. But when the sun goes down, some campuses reveal something else entirely. Echoes in empty hallways, footsteps behind you when no one is there, dorm rooms where whispers bleed through the walls at night. These are not rumors. They are true accounts, shared by students who lived through nights they will never forget. Tonight we'll open 3 chilling chapters of campus horror, real stories from America, London, and Japan. Welcome to the Bone Library. My name is Kareen. 2 years ago, I was living in one of the older dormitories on my university's campus. The building dated back to the 1950s, and it looked normal enough from the outside. But once you stepped in, the air felt different. Heavy. Cold. The paint was peeling, the floors creaked with every step, and the hall lights constantly flickered like they were about to burn out. One night, I stayed late at the library. It was almost 2 in the morning when I finally decided to head back. I remember clearly, because at that hour, the library was practically deserted. Just me and a security guard locking up on the 3rd floor. As I walked out into the night, the campus grounds were empty. The wind was sharp, rattling the trees. The path back to my dorm was dimly lit, and every step echoed too loudly. That's when I felt it, like someone was behind me. I turned around. Nothing. The sidewalk was completely empty. But on the ground, I could swear I saw an extra shadow moving where no one was standing. My chest tightened. I picked up my pace, but then I heard it. Footsteps. Not mine. They were faint, but they matched every step I took. I hurried across campus, practically running until I reached the dorm. I slammed the door shut behind me and finally let myself breathe. But the hallways inside were worse. Too quiet. Usually you'd hear TVs, music, laughter from someone's room, even at this hour. But that night, nothing. Just silence. I climbed to the 3rd floor, my floor, and walked down the long corridor. Some of the doors were slightly ajar, with nothing but darkness inside. And as I passed one of them, I could have sworn I heard whispering. I froze. The moment I turned to look, the door closed, slowly. On its own. My skin crawled. I rushed the rest of the way to my room, fumbled with the key, and locked the door behind me. That night I was alone. My roommate had gone home for the weekend. I turned on the lights, set my bag down, and opened my laptop, trying to distract myself. And then came the sound. Knock, knock, knock. My whole body tensed. "Who is it?" I called out, my voice shaking. Silence. I crept to the door and peered through the peephole. The hallway was completely empty. I backed away, heart pounding. Minutes later, it happened again, this time louder. Knock, knock, knock. I grabbed my phone, turned on the camera, and aimed it at the door. With shaking hands, I cracked it open just a little. But there was nothing. The hallway was dead silent. I shut the door, locked it again, and pressed my back against the wall. I told myself it was nothing. Just nerves. But when I finally tried to lie down in bed, that's when it happened. A whisper, right next to my ear. "Can I come in?" I bolted upright, scanning the room. My door was locked. My window was locked. But I knew what I heard. The voice was real. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly, my breath coming out in faint clouds. The desk lamp flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed the room. And in the corner, I saw her. A faint, shadowy figure of a girl. Long hair covering her face, standing completely still, watching me. I couldn't move. My chest felt like it was being crushed. Then, in an instant, she rushed toward me. I screamed, grabbing my phone flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, and the figure was gone. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat curled in the corner of my bed until the sun finally came up. The next day, I told my friends what happened. To my horror, they weren't surprised. Several people on my floor had experienced the same thing. Knocks at the door, whispers in the night, even the sight of a crying woman walking the halls. That's when I learned the truth. Years ago, a student had taken her own life on the 3rd floor. Some say her spirit never left. And anyone who stays in that dorm long enough will eventually hear the same words whispered in the dark. Can I come in? And even now, long after moving away from that building, sometimes when I'm alone at night in my apartment, I still hear it. That faint, deliberate knocking on my door. My name is Matt, and I studied at an old university in London. It's one of those prestigious schools with a long history, where the buildings themselves seem to breathe the weight of centuries. Red brick walls, tall stained glass windows, endless stone corridors. For most people, those buildings are beautiful. But for me, ever since that night, they're only a reminder of something I'll never forget. It started with an assignment that forced me to stay late at the library. The library was in one of the oldest Victorian-style buildings on campus, a place that students often joked about being haunted. Even some of the professors would make light-hearted comments, saying if you stayed too long, you'd have company from the past. That night, I worked until almost midnight. The library was nearly empty, just me and a janitor cleaning on the lower floor. When I finally packed up my notes and stepped outside, rain was pouring down hard. I stood under the archway, waiting, hoping it would let up. That's when the janitor walked past me. An older man, gray hair, tired eyes. He glanced at me and said something in a low, raspy voice. If you're walking through the West Building, don't look back. Before I could ask what he meant, he was gone. There are 2 ways back to my dorm. One is the main path across the garden, but that night it was soaked and muddy from the rain. The other way cuts through the West Building, and unfortunately, that was the path I took. The moment I stepped inside, I regretted it. The West Building was nearly abandoned, cold and stale with the smell of damp stone. The hallway lights were dim, buzzing faintly as if they could die at any second. Every step I took echoed down the corridor like it was being repeated back to me. I kept my head down, walking quickly, but then I heard it. Footsteps, behind me. I froze. The sound stopped. My heart hammered in my chest. The janitor's words replayed in my mind. Don't look back. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep walking. The footsteps returned, matching mine perfectly. Slow, steady, deliberate. The air grew colder. My breath trembled as I felt someone close behind me. Too close. It was like icy fingers hovering just above the back of my neck. I wanted so badly to turn around, but I couldn't. Finally, I reached the grand staircase that led down toward the exit. I hurried down, trying to keep control, and then a whisper, right in my ear. I know you can hear me. I stumbled, nearly falling down the steps. Instinct took over, and I turned. I wish I hadn't. Standing just a few steps above me was a figure, tall, dressed in old-fashioned student clothes, like something from the late 1800s. A black coat, wrinkled tie, pale face. His eyes were empty. And then, he smiled. Too wide, too humanly impossible. I bolted, sprinting down the stairs as the heavy sound of his footsteps followed close behind, pounding against the stone. I burst through the exit, rain drenching me instantly, but I didn't stop. I ran all the way to my dorm and locked myself inside, shaking until dawn. The next day, I told a friend about what happened. His expression went cold. "The West Building?" he asked. When I nodded, he said, "You shouldn't have gone through there. There's an old story about a student who hanged himself on those stairs. They say if you walk through alone, his spirit will follow you. And if you ever look back, he'll find you." Hearing that, I knew what I saw wasn't in my imagination. From that night on, I never walked through the West Building again. Not even in broad daylight. Because I know, if I ever do, he'll still be waiting there. Smiling. Waiting for me to look back just one more time. My name is Michelle. I'm from the United States, but 2 years ago, I joined a student exchange program in Japan. I was thrilled at first. Japan had always been my dream destination. The rich culture, the beautiful campuses, the vibrant city life. I was placed at a university in the Kansai region. The campus was breathtaking, with cherry blossom trees lining the paths. But what stood out the most was the dormitory for foreign students. The building was quite old, and people whispered that during World War II, it had once been used as a hospital before being converted into student housing. At first, I thought those were just stories, but one night I learned otherwise. I had stayed late after a group study session. By the time I returned, the dormitory was silent. The fluorescent lights in the hallway flickered with a faint buzzing sound. My room was on the 3rd floor, at the very end of a long, narrow corridor. As I climbed the stairs, I noticed the air growing colder, though every window was shut tight. When I reached the 3rd floor, I froze. At the end of the corridor, near my room, a woman was standing. Her hair was long and black, covering most of her face. She wore an old-style Japanese school uniform, something no modern student would ever wear. I stood there, heart pounding. She didn't move. She just stood under the dim light, her shadow stretching unnaturally across the floor. I called out softly, "Sumimasen?" No reply. I tried convincing myself it was just another student, so I walked closer. But then the light above the hallway flickered violently, and she was gone. Vanished. The corridor was empty. Chills ran down my spine, but I forced myself forward, rushed into my room, and locked the door. I tried to sleep, telling myself it was my imagination. But around 3 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of footsteps. Slow, careful, moving down the hallway toward my door. I held my breath. The footsteps stopped right outside my room. Then came a sound that made my stomach twist. Long, sharp nails scraping down the wood. Creak, creak. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep quiet, my whole body trembling. Minutes passed like hours. Then the scraping stopped. Just when I thought it was over, I heard it. A whisper, in Japanese, right outside my door. "Atemozi desu ka?" Which means, "May I come in?" My blood turned to ice. I remembered a warning a Japanese friend once gave me. They had told me about a local urban legend called Hitori Kakurenbo, a ritual that supposedly summoned spirits, often of young women in old uniforms, searching for new victims in abandoned places. That night, I stayed silent. I didn't open the door. I just sat in the corner of my room, waiting desperately for daylight. The next morning, I told another student about what I'd heard. His face turned pale. Then he said, "That dorm used to be a wartime hospital. Many young nurses died there. Some believe their spirits still wander, looking for company or a replacement. Since then, I've never slept with my door unlocked. And every time I hear footsteps in the hallway late at night, I pray they don't stop at my door again. Because deep down, I know if I ever answer that whisper, I might never leave my room the same way again." And those were 3 disturbing true stories from campuses around the world, from America to London to Japan. Places meant for safety and learning sometimes hide the darkest shadows. If you're still listening, it means you're brave enough to keep turning the pages of horror with us. Remember, behind every library, there are bones of stories waiting to be uncovered. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next chilling tale. Only here at The Bone Library. And one last thing. The next time you walk alone through a campus hallway, don't ever look back.